Hello and welcome to our new edition of Enlighten Me, and today we've got Jim Bayer, and he is going to talk to us today about Tai Chi and meditation and how the two can work separately, can work together, integrations, and how it can affect you personally, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. So I'd like to give him a little while to give him a second here to introduce himself. And Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Mike. My name is Jim Bayer. I first started learning about meditation in college. I think my freshman year, I had a world religions class and had read the Bhagavad Gita and Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And from that, I got interested in Zen Buddhism and started sort of trying to practice it a little bit, not very successfully. Few years later, after I graduated, I started practicing Tai Chi. And through Tai Chi, I got back into meditation, specifically Tibetan Dzogchen meditation for quite a while. And more recently, through Sifu Adam Meisner, into traditional Theravada Buddhism, which I have found, having explored several of them, to be really the one that works for me the best.
Oh, excellent. That's interesting because Tai Chi comes out of Taoism, and you somehow integrate it with Buddhism, it sounds like.
I think it's a misconception about the origin of Tai Chi.
Okay.
If you look at the traditional origin story of Chang Sung Fong, he was a member of the Complete Reality School of Taoism, which appeared about 1,000 years ago. Before that, Taoism was illegal to practice and teach in China. One of the Chinese emperors converted to Buddhism and outlawed Taoism, and it went underground for several hundred years. Buddhism was the main influence at that time in China. And then the next dynasty, Taoism came back out, but it was sort of pared down, and it was the Complete Reality School. And those guys tried to balance Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism all together. So Buddhism, and Chang Sung Fong was one of the 7 of that group who were the major ones. And so Buddhism would definitely have a major influence on the creation of Tai Chi.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. I did not realize that. I did hear someone say that, what was it, one time, it might have been you, I saw on one of the forums, that Zen Buddhism is just Taoism with Buddha.
Yeah, that was probably me. One of this, it's like Buddhism met Taoism in China, and Buddhism lost.
Yeah.
But that's not to belittle Zen in any way. I have a lot of respect for Zen Buddhism. It's a great practice. It's interesting because in Theravada Buddhism, there's sort of two. The Buddha said you need 2 legs to walk the path. One is called shamatha meditation, which means like calm abiding or peaceful abiding. The other one is vipassana meditation, which is seeing things clearly as they are, or seeing and letting go, seeing, knowing, and letting go.
Okay.
And so the Zen is primarily shamatha. They mostly just sit and contemplate their navels or whatever. It's peaceful. And in the Tibetan traditions, the Dzogchen is largely vipassana, which is just allowing things to arise naturally and releasing them.
Now, how do those compare? Maybe there really is any contrast to either of these. It may not be anyway, but how do you see those as compared to what the ancient Taoists used to say about meditation, or what their view of meditation was?
My understanding is that fundamental Taoist meditation is the microcosmic orbit.
Okay.
And so that's sort of it's sort of a mix, but it's more like Tantra in a way, where you're working with energy moving inside the body. It's closer to the Tibetan model. I'm not sure what else the ancient Taoist masters said about it. Are you thinking like Lao Tzu?
Yeah, I was thinking that, or just as a more of a general statement. So just for people that may be viewing this that are new new to all of this. Can you talk a little bit about exactly what is microcosmic orbit, and so that they can.
Sure. The microcosmic orbit is a meditation technique that involves resting your mind on acupuncture points on the conception meridian and on the governing meridian that goes up and over the back. And there's about a dozen points. They correspond roughly to the body's glandular system.
Okay.
And so by letting the mind rest on those, or visualizing sometimes or something like that, letting the energy move freely between them. It sort of is like the chakra system also, but
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, it kind of opens and balances those things. So it's an excellent meditation system, but it's very active.
That's what was coming to mind. It seems more active than what you would be typically taught in a Zen Buddhist or a Buddhist class or a meditation.
Yeah, I think so too. And in that way, it's more like Tai Chi. Tai Chi is also active, quite active in what you're doing. So, I think what unifies all the systems of meditation is, if I'll use the Chinese language, they all involve use of the Yi, or the mind intention, the Ting, or perceiving clearly, and Sung, which is releasing and relaxing. So if I'm going to practice shamatha in the Theravada tradition, I focus my mind on my breath at the gate of my nostrils, and I try to perceive the breath as clearly as possible. I use the breath to develop the skill of perception and refine the skill of perception. And then whatever else arises, I release it and I let it go.
Okay.
And it's the same with Tai Chi. When I focus Tai Chi, of course, all the great masters emphasize relaxation as sort of the key principle of Tai Chi. And so relaxation is Sung, that is the releasing and letting go. But in order to relax, I have to be able to perceive tension. In order to perceive tension, I have to place my mind inside my body.
I think that's a struggle for a lot of people first starting out, whether you're talking about Tai Chi or meditation, that placing the mind inside the body without going all directions,
Right, our minds are like wild animals and they go everywhere. And so that's why I think the sitting meditation is a great practice for benefiting your Tai Chi. It trains your mind to be more stable, more still, more calm, more perceptive. And if your mind is calm, then you can perceive inside your body. This is also true for like Qigong and the Qi cultivation side of the practice, because the basic idea is the Qi follows the mind. So if my mind is going everywhere, it's like I'm just scattering my Qi around. If I can train my mind to be calm and still, now the Qi can pool, and I can start to actually cultivate the Qi like is described in the Tai Chi classics.
Okay. Yeah, and I could definitely see this. And I think certain styles of Tai Chi would start out with that. The meditation was the beginning, the first step for the student.
My understanding is that's how it was traditionally taught, back in the day, before it became popularized and a health exercise. Yang Cheng Fu changed Tai Chi and made it primarily into a health exercise when he taught it publicly. Only the indoor students or disciples were taught the martial aspects.
Oh, okay. What differences do you see between, maybe stirring the pot a little bit, but what differences do you see in the people that are practicing this for the health and wellness and the people that are practicing this for the martial art?
I think it's pretty individual. Most people, I think, who are after the art of Tai Chi do both.
Okay.
Like the Yang family said, it's yin and yang, it's martial and civil. And if you just practice the martial side but not cultivate the civil side, you don't get the whole art. If you just practice the civil side but don't look at the martial side, also you don't get the whole art. So it's a unique art, and it should be, in my view, it should be practiced in its wholeness. as much as possible.
That was I was at a workshop, and Wei San Lao was teaching with this one, and that's something that kind of captured my attention. He talked about the different levels of Tai Chi,
Okay.
and that he mentioned that the very first one was the martial art aspect.
Yeah.
And then the next three all dealt with some type of helping and healing.
Okay. And as my understanding, I've never met him, but I have met people who have studied with him and studied with him recently, is that he's definitely moved more towards the healing aspects of it.
Yes, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Um, I would certainly say that's the direction he's definitely going. Um, how do you look at Tai Chi from the standpoint of the forms, um, being more meditate or moving meditation?
Yeah, that I think there's a lot inside the forms that isn't taught openly. Most people go and they learn a form, the teacher stands in front and does movements, and they stand and they just sort of imitate,
Hmm.
and and it feels good, the energy moves, you calm your breathing, you start to get the health benefits. So forms are great for that. um, I I had the good fortune to study in a school here in Milwaukee at the Tai Chi Chuan Center of Milwaukee that worked in close conjunction with Ben Lowe, and we hosted his Midwest camp here for like 30 years.
Hmm.
So I got to see him every year and did many camps with him. And generally at Ben Lowe camps, you didn't do a flow practice. We would get together in the morning before breakfast and do flow practice, but in class, in formal class, we would just do a posture, and then he would walk around and correct everybody. And maybe there's like 60 people from all over the world in the room, and so it might be 20 minutes before you get to move again.
Oh no.
It was they were hard work, and then you go to the next posture and it's the same thing. And people who were newer, his corrections would be pretty big. You move your hand 6 inches this way. People who had been to a bunch of these, the corrections got smaller and smaller. So this is like what's called the inches of the form. You
Hmm.
might move your hand just an inch or half an inch, and and really through that kind of thing, you start to learn about structure and skeletal alignment in ways that you actually can never find by just doing flow practice.
Okay. So it's that sounds like something, particularly if you've got a teacher that's there with you, working with you, rather than just kind of racing through the forms to go step pose by pose and get those corrections down.
Yeah, and also just to kind of soak in the shapes and to take the time to actually relax your body inside the shapes.
I
So
think
I'm
that's particularly for a new student. That's very hard to do. I realize that with some of the students. When I don't know if it's not physically being capable of doing it or not understanding what it means.
I don't think anybody really understands what relax means. You know, I have the good fortune now to study with Sifu Adam Meisner, and everybody says relax. I saw him demonstrate relaxation once, in which it was at a workshop here in Milwaukee a couple years ago. He was demonstrating the application for diagonal flying, where he launched a guy off of his right arm in a bow stance. But he was talking about the internal mechanisms inside the body while you do the shape, and he asked me to squeeze his right thigh, which he had most of his weight on, while he was doing the application. And I couldn't believe it. His thigh was like liquid down to the bone.
Wow.
He didn't have any musculature engaged in the leg he was standing on while he tossed somebody.
Oh my goodness. That
So,
is pretty
so
impressive.
that's relaxation. And that's a pretty high bar that he's setting. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So in order to like really, that's why meditation is so important. That's his background. Is he was actually going to ordain as a Buddhist monk in the Thai forest tradition in Thailand, Well, maybe I'm not supposed to tell this story, but his teacher, Lumpur Junian, told him, you can't, you have to go teach Tai Chi all over the world. At the time, he only had like a few students in Thailand. So to really get relaxation, the best way is to practice sitting meditation. And the reason I say that is this: those things that we're working on, I mentioned before, Yi, Ting, and Sung, are also what we work on in Tai Chi. In order to feel inside my body, in order to relax, I have to be able to put my mind inside my body, which means, first of all, my mind has to be under my control to some degree. So I have to have a trained mind that is capable of resting, that's capable of being calm. So then I put it inside my body, I feel inside my musculature in my leg, let's say, and then I consciously release and relax whatever I find, and I let it go. And so that's why, like, it takes a time. And so if you're just do flow practice all the time, you don't really have time to do that. Now, maybe you do some standing work or stand in open posture or something like that for a period of time before and after or something like that. That's all good. And I don't mean to downplay flow practice. That's also very good for health. It's excellent for your circulation. It feels good. It's kind of like taking a little vacation every day, as T.T. Liang said. But I think a lot of people, when they do the flow practice, what they do is they go into a trance. And so it's not really mindfulness at all. It's escape.
Okay.
And the symptom of that is, and I think everybody who's learned Tai Chi knows this one, when you're doing flow practice, you get to say a repeating posture like single whip, and you don't know which one you're at. Wait, which one is this? Right? So I think everybody there. So where was your mind then while you were practicing? If your mind is, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that's the drawback sometimes with when you first start out, you're so focused on the physical moves and making sure you're doing everything correctly that your mind in a way becomes focused. You kind of have to, because otherwise you can't keep up. However, once you get used to it and you get into that flow, I think that's where the struggle begins, because then the mind can, I can take a little vacation and wander off here or wander off there.
Right. Like driving a car, when you first start, you're focusing on every little thing meticulously, but after a while, you can talk on your phone or read the newspaper or whatever you see people doing in their cars.
But we never do that in Wisconsin, right?
No, we have very strict laws.
Yes.
So that's why I think sitting meditation is so important, because it gives you a chance to really look at your mind and to see what's arising. Like if I can talk a little bit more about Buddhism, the primary teaching that the Buddha gave, and this is why I think Buddhism is so relevant to Tai Chi. The primary teaching that the Buddha gave, the very first teaching, was the teaching on the Four Noble Truths. And so the Four Noble Truths, the first one is, in the Pali language, it's called dukkha. And it gets translated all the time as suffering. But that's not really a very good translation. A better translation is like dissatisfaction. Like, I'm not happy with this moment the way it is. Like, I'm a little hungry. Like, suffering makes it sound like it's dire and like it's really bad.
Yeah.
It's really about that. It's about how, like I'm just a little uncomfortable right now. I want to adjust my body. That's dukkha, right? Or I'm hungry. I want to eat. That's dukkha. Or, like this noise that's happening in the background is annoying me. That's dukkha. It's not suffering. It's more like stress. That's a much better translation.
Okay.
So that's the first noble truth, is the existence of stress. The second one is seeing stress clearly. Like it gets translated as like the arising of stress, but it implies that you're seeing it arise. You see it as it happens. And so the third noble truth is the cessation of stress, or the release of stress. So this is like Yi, Ting, and Sung. If I don't have Ting, I'm not seeing the stress arise, right? This is mindfulness, right? Ting is like mindfulness. And so if my Ting is clear and I'm perceiving inside my body, I notice as I'm doing this shape, or maybe I'm in push hands and somebody's getting the upper hand on me, I start to tense up. I have stress arising. Now it should be, according to the Tai Chi principles and according to the Buddhist principles, is that then what you do is you see it clearly and you release it, you relax it, and you let it go. But if
Easier
we
said
don't
than
see
done
it
sometimes.
clearly, yeah, right. If we don't see it clearly, we don't let it go. So we have to see it clearly first. And if you're at the practice of doing it sitting, it just gives you a lot more experience of it real directly.
Okay. Okay. Now, what if you would, somebody who's just starting out in meditation?
Okay.
And I know you said sitting meditation is probably the best for someone like that. Um, Walk me through what you would tell a student like that, or how would you talk them through that to get started?
We think of it in terms of restraint. When you sit, you want to restrain your mind. So the first thing is I restrain my mind to the present moment. So I don't allow my mind to go to the future or the past. I want to focus on my breathing, which is always in the present moment. And then further, I restrain my mind to, what I teach is a point just below the nostrils, kind of
Okay.
between the lip and the nostrils, outside of the body. And you just kind of let your mind rest there. And then you observe the inhale, you observe the exhale. The basic technique is you see the inhale and exhale clearly. At the end of the exhale, you count, that's 1. Inhale, exhale 2, up to 10. When you do 10 breaths, you just start over and do it again.
Okay.
Very simple. The technique is very simple and very effective and ancient. What happens though, of course, is our minds wander. I remember when I first learned this technique, I was shocked I couldn't count to 3 ever. I have students who have been practicing with me for a couple of years and they're shocked that they still don't even start counting. So it's tricky. But what happens is our mind wanders. As we build our mindfulness, gradually our mind wanders and we start to be able to see it wandering clearly. And then we just release whatever it wandered to and we directly bring the mind back and start again. Inhale, exhale, 1, like that.
Okay. And you made me think, you look at so many app meditation, excuse me, and mindfulness apps that are out there now, and you look through the process and it's so complex and so complicated. And to hear
Yeah.
you just sit there in a few minutes and describe, just sit quietly, observe your thoughts, observe your breathing.
Right. And just release whatever thoughts, feelings, perceptions arise. It's just a practice of letting go. Again, it's restraint. I keep restraining my mind so it's only on my breath.
Tell me a little bit, okay, whether you're studying Tai Chi, whether you're studying Buddhism, I would say even yoga carries some of this with it as well. It's what you just said, that living in the present and are maintaining. Tell me a little bit about that and what that looks like to you. And I have a follow-up question once you get.
Okay. Living in the present is like, that's the only place you actually are living. So to me, that just looks like living. If you're living in the past or you're living in the future, the past is unreliable. If you talk to 2 people who had the same experience, saw the same thing, they give you different descriptions of it. Maybe one day I'm in a really happy mood and you ask me to tell you something about what happened to me yesterday, and I tell you about it and I make it sound great because I feel good now. Maybe later I'm in a crappy mood and you ask me the same question and I describe it as kind of like subpar because I'm in a bad mood. So the past isn't like an actual thing. It's a reconstruction that we create in our imagination that's determined by how we are in this moment. It's unreliable. And it changes over time. Like memories change over time. It's like the standard fish story, right? Oh, I caught one, it was this big. No, it was this big. Every time you tell it, the story's different. And the past, that's the past. It's never the same. It's always changing. And of course, the future is even less known, less knowable. I can be thinking about maybe I have a date with my wife tonight or something like that. And so I'm thinking about it, I'm anticipating it, but it's not going to be anything like what I think, no matter what I think. So if I'm in the present moment, I'm actually where things are happening and I can interact with them and and live my life more fully, I guess, is really what it comes down to.
Okay. How do you distinguish that always being in the present? And I remember staying with the Buddhist teachings that I would study and with the Taoists. And as well, now I'm going through yoga teacher training. And so you're seeing that same pattern come back up of, you know, like you said, the past has already occurred. It's always changing. It doesn't exist anymore. The future is unpredictable. So you stay here. So the key is to stay here in the present moment. How do you balance that with the ability to plan ahead or to plan for the,
Uh-huh.
see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, well, we can imagine the future, and so we hope that the future will be good to us. So we take time now to plan for the future. Like it's simple. It's just like I know I have to go to the store and buy food if I want to eat tonight. So if I don't do that, I'll learn pretty quickly that I have to be skillful. That's the Buddhist term, is skillful. It's the same idea in Tai Chi. Kung Fu means skill.
Hmm.
So we want to develop skill. In Tai Chi, we want to develop skill in movement, skill in self-defense, perhaps, skillful in how we conduct our energy. In meditation, we want to become skillful in how we conduct the processes in our mind, and they overlap completely. So you just have to like be sensible about it. I know that the future is a thing. A lot of times we get caught up in concepts, and the nice thing about meditation practice, whether it's Tai Chi, Taoist, Buddhist, yoga at all, is that it kind of like frees us from concepts in a lot of ways. We start to think less conceptually and more like through direct experience.
That's interesting because, yeah, I sometimes wonder with people when you talk about that living in the present, if they don't perceive that is, I don't plan anything. I don't look ahead. It's whatever happens, happens. And,
Yeah,
whether that's, the future of a business, whether that's the future of your career, or it's buying groceries for dinner that night. It's like, I don't
yeah.
know. I don't think that's really where they were going when they meant that.
Yeah, like you have to plan, but while you're planning, you're planning intentionally. Again, it's the I, Ting, and Sung. Uh, I is my intention. I want to create an intention for a better future. That's
Mhm.
why I practice my Tai Chi, right? So I can have good health, so I can handle myself on the street if something goes down. That's why I practice meditations, so that my mind is more peaceful. Ultimately, I think in both of them, what we're looking to do is improve our life and increase our happiness. And
Absolutely.
and if I don't plan for the future, like we have to plan for future happiness. We have to make concrete steps to create a future. Just because I can only do that in the present moment. But it's like planting. It's like gardening, right? If I don't plant the seed in the spring, I won't have any food in the fall.
Hmm.
So we have to think ahead, but we have to do it carefully, skillfully, and it's a lot of it is like gardening. We have to tend the weeds as they arise. We have to apply water periodically throughout the season. There's a lot to it. It's all cultivation.
Okay. Yeah, I know it makes complete sense to me. It's just sometimes with the conversations I've had with folks, it's like, I'm not really sure this is where it's supposed to be going, but let's just go with
Yeah.
it for now.
Well, people are always have their own way, and you're there are people who are sincere seekers, I think, who don't have good teachers. There's not a lot of good teachers available these days. I mean, there's more than ever, but you have to actually like make some effort. Most people, I think, make the mistake of thinking they can figure it out for themselves or something like that. These are traditions that were passed down for generations and refined by brilliant, cultivated people. And so to think that you could like figure it out on your own, I think is pretty arrogant. And good luck.
Good luck with it. Now that brings up to the next a good point here. What should someone who's looking for a meditation teacher, because I think you're right. There's so much out there right now, and some good, some not so good. What should a person who's interested in studying meditation, what should they look for in a teacher?
Um, you know, in the Buddhist writings, I think in one of them, one of the sutras, it's suggested that the student watch the teacher for 3 years before deciding.
Oh, wow.
And, and the teacher also watches the student for 3 years before deciding that they'll accept them as a student. And so over that time, what do you watch for? Well, you just watch to see that they're consistent, that their actions match their words. Uh, you know, the words are readily available. Anybody can repeat the words, but that doesn't mean that they have it inside their bodies and minds. I guess those are the main things. Uh, Buddhist people who practice Buddhist meditation in particular should be very kind. Kindness is a central aspect of traditional Buddhism. And so if they're kind of jerky or like that, then you go, well, you know, okay, we practice metta loving kindness in class, but then I see this person, you know, acting in this way up later. Most people don't have 3 years to give to this. Like that's a very old school way of looking at it. Most people, if they get involved in something in 3 years, they've already done 2 other things and left that far behind. It's kind of our culture.
Well, and I think that's a key piece when you talk, whether you're talking about Tai Chi, martial arts, meditation, or even yoga for that matter. It's not a weekend workshop deal. It's it's an ongoing. Well, somebody told me it's about the journey. It's not getting to the goal.
Right, right. There's no goal.
There is no goal.
Yeah. You know, one of the nice things about these things for a lot of people is the community that builds up around them. Like here in Milwaukee, we have a lovely Tai Chi community because of the, you know, like the Tai Chi Center has been around for 40 years. It's certified several teachers. I think there's more Tai Chi in Milwaukee than there is in Chicago. And so there's an incredible community of practitioners here. And meditation communities also are like that. Even if people come into the communities and they're rough around the edges and they have a lot of issues in their life, the practices themselves and the example of the seniors in the community should sort of even those things out. And, you know, like the bad seeds get weeded out usually pretty quick. And then other people's sharp edges get worn down and they become kind of smooth and open, and community is a central aspect to these things. So I would say that that's another way to judge a teacher is by the community that exists around them.
Yeah, I think that is a key piece, and that's something I think we kind of all have this vision of this elderly monk up in the mountain, one person, and we all go one person. You go in one-on-one, and I think where some of the greatest growth can take place is when you're with a group of other people doing this and building that community.
Yeah, all these things are like individual practices. You practice your Tai Chi by yourself every day. You practice meditation by yourself every day. But it's so wonderful to get together with a group and practice with a group because it fortifies your practice. Sometimes, for some people, that's the only time they practice anyway.
Yeah, yeah, and that goes with Tai Chi. You know, I've got several students I know of just off the top of my head that I'm thinking of that one time a week is probably the one time they practice.
Right. And so, you know, they get what they're looking for. They're probably looking for community, and maybe they need some kind of structure in their life, and that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for people who are serious about it and really want to dive into what it is and develop the principles inside of it. But again, the main principle is relaxation. You want to really take it to heart that you have to watch yourself carefully in your day-to-day life. If maybe I have a stressful job and I do my job for 8 hours and my boss is mean and my coworkers are rude and whatever, and maybe I have a job I don't even respect, and I come back and I'm like stressed out, and I go, okay, now I'm going to practice my Tai Chi, and I do my Tai Chi form, and it really calms me down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it makes it possible for me to even do this job. And that's great, but I'm never going to take Tai Chi very deeply because every day I'm putting so much stress into my body, into my mind, that the entire Tai Chi practice is just subtracting the stress that accumulates every day.
Yeah.
And like maybe I can stay even and not have stress accumulate month to month. Probably not. But you know, if you're doing your job for 8 hours and you practice Tai Chi for 1 hour, that's not a real good ratio if you're trying to stay even, if your job is stressful. But if I'm at my job and I have this crappy job, but I have the habit of watching stress arise in my mind, and I am skillful at releasing the stress as it appears, which means I'm mindful, my mind is in the present moment, I have ting, I'm perceiving how my mind and feeling is operating, and I have sung, I'm releasing it all and not letting it accumulate. At the end of the day, I might be more relaxed than when I started. And then I come to my Tai Chi practice, and now I can really like relax more deeply. I can focus on physically relaxing my musculature and the systems in my body.
Well, I think you bring up a point here, along with that, is that I think again, I think the tendency is to think meditation, Tai Chi, it's all accomplished in a weekend workshop and or an online course. You know, okay, I take this course or I go to this workshop, I'm done, I'm all better now. I can meditate for hours or I can do Tai Chi for hours. And the results aren't, when they don't get the results, they get frustrated and generally leave for something else. And I think with both of those areas that the tendency is you don't see sudden change. You may there's that rare chance that it's more of a gradual one where first you're able to focus solely in your Tai Chi or in your meditation. Then suddenly you, as you said, you begin to observe your thoughts throughout the day, maybe more or a little better. And then suddenly, okay, now you're able to manage those thoughts a little better. And then so over time, you begin to see the impact. And it's like, it's suddenly you wake up one morning, it's like, oh, wait, I have, I have improved.
I have skill.
Hmm.
I have skill. So yeah, you know, like Ben Lowe used to say, 10 years to lay the foundation in Tai Chi, 20 years to maybe get it. I know a lot of people have practiced way longer than 20 years who I don't think have it.
Yeah. Well, and and that's the thing I think, and I think that's the struggle versus say going to a yoga class, going to a Tai Chi class or a meditation versus a yoga. If I go into a 1 hour yoga session, whether I'm good at it or not, when I walk out of it, I feel like I've done something.
Yeah. You know, I think it's the same with Tai Chi practice. Every time you practice, you feel better,
Yeah.
right? If you're really following it, you feel better in your mind and your body. Your emotions are soothed. Your body's more relaxed. You get health benefit every time you practice. If you practice right, you know, like if you're misaligning your knees, like alignment is so important in Tai Chi. Um, that's another part I wanted to mention about the meditative, the mindfulness aspect, the ting, clear seeing is you have to make sure you're aligning your skeleton properly when you practice Tai Chi so you don't injure your joints, especially
Mm-hmm.
the knee joints have a lot of pressure going through them. And if you're not doing that, then it's a, you know, how many people have you met who have hurt their knees doing Tai Chi?
Mm-hmm.
Lots, right?
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And
hear the joint injuries.
yeah, and it's not because Tai Chi is bad for the joints at all. Tai Chi is great for the joints if you do it right. It's just that there's so much pressure going through the leg that if you can't do it wrong,
Yeah.
or you get the injuries. Walking is the same way. If you walk wrong, you'll injure yourself.
Well, and that's some of the stuff I try to do with my students. I'll say, you know, okay, maybe they're still new, they're looking to pick up on this stuff, and I suggest this with new students as well, is give them little exercises. Like, what did we pick up today from the rice paper walking?
Uh-huh.
And then, okay, now how can you implement that in, you know, in your daily walking? Oh, you
Right.
can do that. Do that this week and see what happens. Come back next
Right.
week and tell me what you find.
The same thing. Especially, I have a senior center class,
Hmm.
and like we work a lot on just walking because that's that has to be, I think you have to be able to walk well before you can do Tai Chi poorly.
Yeah.
So, so we just work on relearning to walk well again and maintain balance and develop leg strength.
Well, and that's the key. Yeah, I think we don't realize just in our day-to-day activities what kind of stresses we do put on the body by improper walking, improper standing, things like that. So
improper thinking.
Improper thinking, yeah, it's not just the physical.
Primarily, it's the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So like if the goal in Tai Chi practice is to be extraordinarily relaxed and released in your body, you work on that every day. That's great, but if your mind isn't released, it's not going to last. Your body's going to like the source of the majority of the tension in your body comes from your mind.
Yeah.
So train your mind to be released. Train your mind to be open and clear and just like present and peaceful, and then your body will benefit tremendously, and Tai Chi will become, your Tai Chi practice will become richer and fuller, and you'll get more benefit from it.
Well, and I think seeing that day to day, I've through the yoga teacher training, they've actually asked us to journal about what impacts we've seen from the class, what impacts we've seen from our daily practice, things like that. And I kind of wonder now, from a meditation and Tai Chi standpoint, if the same thing shouldn't be added to a class so that you can look back over time and see, oh wow, I have progressed. Particularly with Tai Chi and meditation, it's not a sudden thing. It really is just more of a gradual easing into it.
Yeah, I encourage people to take notes about their practice and like have a journal, write down questions that they have during their weeks, of practice, so they remember them when they come to class, and take notes from the class, and then journal. Like, I don't really talk about journaling too much, but it's especially like, the first year of your Tai Chi practice, most people have pretty significant breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
Like just learning that they can relax, and they like their life is more in their control than maybe what they were taught, and their reactions are more in their control than what they thought. That can be very liberating.
Yes.
In the second year too, but then like by the fifth, sixth year, the progress starts slowing down quite a bit. And, so you start seeing, well, at the beginning of the year, I was like this, but now I'm like this. Oh gosh, this year I went backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So sincerity of practice is the main thing in all of these.
Well, and that's the persistence. I think someone who's in their fifth or sixth year, even though the changes may be slower, they've committed a substantial amount of time at that stage. Right. And so the hope is it allows them to push through those times when the progress is slower, or we go backwards a little bit.
Yeah, I tell my students, resistance precedes the breakthrough.
I like that. I like that a lot. I also just want to drop in a quick note. If you've got questions, feel free to ask. As we said at the beginning, this is very informal, so feel free just to open up your mic and ask questions.
And I'll answer questions afterwards too, if this will be posted on Facebook and such. And
I'll put a link to this on Facebook as well, so anybody who wants to ask questions later or post comments. This is, I think we've kind of jumped around at different areas, and so I think that's really good. Historically, when people think, or I won't say historically, I might be an overgeneralization, but when people think of meditation, they tend to think of, I think what you and I were talking about, sitting in that lotus position, the eyes focused on one part. What other forms of meditation do you recommend, particularly someone who may be training in Tai Chi or any of the martial arts for that matter?
The martial arts have a long history of being joined with meditation. I would recommend the method that I described previously. One of the things is, like, every time your mind wanders, when you bring it back to the breath, you want to bring it back with a little more like mental pressure, more concentration, more focus. Okay. Ideally, we train towards just letting the mind rest. But at first, the mind is so scattered and so chaotic that it's not even close to being able to rest. So when it wanders off, we bring it back and we concentrate a little harder. And so then what we're doing through the concentration practice is we're sort of changing the structure of the mind. For something to rest, it has to be solid, right? If I have a glass of water, I can set the glass down and the water will jiggle around in the glass for a little bit, and gradually the water will rest also. The solid rests before the liquid, right? But then the liquid rests. But the air that's on top of the water just keeps moving. It doesn't rest.
Oh, interesting.
So our minds are like that too. When we start, our minds are like air. And so by concentrating, bringing the mind to a focus and not letting it move, restraining the mind to a single point, we're training the mind to become more like liquid, so it moves more slowly, we can see it more clearly. Gradually, it becomes more like a solid where it can just rest. And then we continue concentrating, and what we find is that our awareness changes. Instead of like, in describing the breath, we start out by saying, okay, be aware of the beginning of the inhale, the middle of the inhale, and the end of the inhale, and same with the exhale. And then break it down maybe into like 5 parts, and then the inhale into 10 parts. And then gradually, like what it becomes is you see every little facet of the inhale, and your mind becomes very sharp and very fast. Minds are very fast. Most people's minds are conditioned to operating at the speed of language. So when I get upset or I start to feel like I'm doing push hands and I'm being pushed out, I analyze it, I think about it, and like that's all tension in the first place. But second of all, it's really slow. So by doing the shamatha, focusing on the breathing, my mind becomes much faster, and I'm able to see smaller and smaller increments of time, which means now that like when I'm driving and somebody cuts me off and I start to get upset, like what happens when we get upset, right? Our blood pushes up into our face. Our face turns red. It's because our body contracts, right? So if my mind is sharp enough, fast enough, I can feel my body starting to contract immediately, and I can release it and relax it. And I don't lose my temperature. I stay calm and cool.
And that's the key part of the meditation in Tai Chi, is to to learn that as quickly as possible. To be able to. And this is interesting.
And so for martial arts, then it's like this, right? And this is for all martial arts. If I'm in a self-defense situation or push hands competition or whatever it is, how quickly can I change? So if my mind is operating at the speed of language, I'm pretty darn slow. Like change, think, change, think, change, think. Maybe I'm changing 1 time per second. If my mind is faster and I can feel tension and release tension as it's arising, maybe I can change 5 times a second. So every time my opponent changes once, I can change 5 times. They'll never be able to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
By the time they perceive what I did, I've already changed them and doing something else. If I can change 10 times a second, now I'm starting to have some pretty good skill.
You can go, you're going beyond the idea of that Tai Chi or not, you don't hear it as much meditation, but you do hear it a lot with Tai Chi, is that it's all just body mechanics. It's all just body mechanics, but you're suggesting that it does tie in the mind. It ties in all aspects of the being.
Yeah, of course, body mechanics are very important, but if you can't change, or if if your body mechanics are slow, then you're not going to do so great in a self-defense situation.
Exactly.
I'm caught in what just happened, and I'm not noticing the fist that's coming at my face, or whatever. Maybe my shape is really good and my body mechanics are awesome, but if I'm not aware, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So awareness is, it's yin and yang. Tai Chi is always yin and yang.
Absolutely.
So mind and body together. Again, I have a lot of time spent with Ben Lo. One of the things he would say is when you first start practicing Tai Chi, I'm going to sit back here so I can see if I can do this in the frame. Like your body's here and your mind is here. And as you practice over years, gradually they become closer and closer until they meet, right?
Okay.
And then he would say that's still not good enough because they can go like this. So the current is this.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah. So the mind and body are unified. And so if you just practice the body, but your mind is wandering, like we have this phrase, we say just going through the motions.
Hmm.
It means you're sort of half-hearted about it. You're not really sincere. You're not really there while you're doing it. That's how a lot of people practice their Tai Chi, I think. They get up in the morning, I'm going to practice my Tai Chi, and while they're doing it, they're kind of planning out their day or thinking about like other stuff, and their mind's not actually doing Tai Chi. Their body's doing the form, but their mind isn't doing Tai Chi, which
Yep,
means they're going through the motions.
exactly. Well, we are about to run out of time here, so you had a couple of things you wanted to make our viewers aware of, and I wanted to give you a chance to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. Um, I'm really honored and grateful to Sifu Adam Meisner for offering his U.S. camp, his first ever U.S. camp here in Milwaukee next July, the 14th to the 20th. You can sign up for that on the heavenmanearth.com website. There's people coming from all over North America, actually. It's going to be an amazing event. And if you have any questions about it, you can contact me. So I just want to give a plug for that event. There's again, like I practiced in the Ben Lo lineage for 20 years before I met Adam, and got fairly good at the push hands that was presented in that system. And so, like many people, I was kind of skeptical when I first met him. I wasn't sure what to think, like kind of looks fake, hard to say. But I stepped in and started pushing with him, and with like 2 fingers, he could control me like a marionette puppet. I never experienced anything like that before. I consider myself a serious martial artist. In addition to Tai Chi, I also practice Bakwa. I have some Shaolin background. And so to me, that was pretty remarkable. And I've been working with and trying to get his system ever since, which is extraordinary, very deep, very profound. So come and see for yourself. If you're skeptical, there's only one way to answer skepticism, and that's through direct experience.
I will make sure to post a link to the registration on the
Okay, great.
with the video description. That way, if people want to go in and find out more, or learn more about it, or get registered, that'd be the ideal.
Sure.
Click right to it.
I have an event page on my under Jim Bayer for my Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook event is under my name.
All right. I'll put that. I'll make sure to put a link to that.
Okay.
Well,
great.
Jim, this has been an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much.
Learned so much from you, as usual, and so much from you. And it was great having you. Definitely want to bring you back again, and definitely get you back here again when you've got some time. I know you keep a pretty busy schedule, and have some further discussion. So with that, I'd like to wrap it up. This is a broadcast from elighten.me. Definitely go there to check out the courses, check out the learning communities we've got going on. We've got ones to meet the mindfulness, meditation, Tai Chi. Certainly feel free to jump in and get involved. They're free, so definitely a great opportunity. So thank you, Jim, and
Thank you, Mike.
wish you well.
Wish you well. Enjoy.